Hello and welcome to Merlin's Brick News, the weekly show on all things brick building where we talk about set updates and announcements from all the major brands, mocks of the week, and sometimes new LEGO ideas entries as well. However, we have to skip these for this week because there's a lot of stuff to cover. Information is presented as always by setdb.org, the best source for set information on the internet. Let's get started. As always, in alphabetical order, we start with BlueBrixx, and here we have two availabilities of, let's say, two pieces of the new lineup of Beer Rock Castle, and they have now available the Castle Base as well as the Keep, which I'm going to show you in a second. So this is the new Castle series from BlueBrixx. They have already, of course, Blaustein Castle, which is like pure grown-up mock, highly detailed. I think they're nowadays with all the extensions at 22,000 pieces. So this thing here is a different animal. I think it is targeted more at kids or maybe people who have a lot of nostalgia for like the Castle series from Lego in the 80s, because it is quite simple, right? It has like panels and it doesn't have that many modern building techniques. It is modernized a little bit like the Pirate series from Lego, but at the same time still quite, let's say, simplistic. Anyhow, Beer Rock Castle, the Castle Base, is now available. We are talking about the 105506 from BlueBrixx. Over here in Europe, including tax, you're going to pay $60 for it. That's slightly above 5.5 cents a piece. This thing is 32 by 30 centimeters, so it's a bit slightly bigger than a base plate, like 5-6 centimeters. Maybe it's like, I don't know, 45 stats by 40, something like that. And it's going to have 1,610 pieces. So, like I said, they also announced the Keep extension. By the way, both of these sets are in the BlueBrixx, my apologies, the BlueBrixx Pro series. So that means you get like a colorful box, you get paper manual usually. We do not yet know who's going to manufacture or who's manufacturing these. So I assume Xingbao, that's usually the go-to partner for BlueBrixx when it comes to these sets. They usually give the BlueBrixx Pro sets out to companies in China, while the specials is something that they package themselves. So long story short, Beer Rock Castle, both the base as well as the Keep, are both in this BlueBrixx Pro series, which also means no digital manual. Then they have, of course, as always, the BlueBrixx Specials, which means only a digital manual, no paper manual, and usually not a colored box. And BlueBrixx is packaging these themselves. So BlueBrixx Beer Rock Castle, I think, will have its 5 or 6 sets. Let's do a quick search in SetDB. It's 6 sets overall. So in addition to these two here, you will have a gatehouse, a palisade, a smith, and a wall extension. Those 4, to my knowledge, are going to be BlueBrixx specials, and they are not available yet. But with all of these, and I guess with the wall expansion, you can even buy multiple and even multiple gatehouses. So in theory, because it's a highly modular system, I don't know, you can, knock yourself out and buy 10, 15 of these sets and build an enormous castle, which I think is great. I mean, I would have loved that as a kid, my entire room being a huge, gigantic castle, if you will. Anyhow, let's go back to the Keep. We are talking about the 105545 by BlueBrixx. It has 1,140 pieces, and it's listed at $60, 5.3 cents a piece. All right, let's move on to another availability of a locomotive, the V60. So that's a diesel locomotive over here from Deutsche Bundesbahn in Germany. We're talking about the 105544. It has 600 pieces, roughly, $5.99 to be precise, and it's going to cost $30, including tax. Over here, 5 cents a piece, 7 cents per gram. So V60, BlueBrixx has done this one before, I'm pretty sure. However, that was a 6-stud version. So what we are basically doing here now is, let me just... Yeah, this is the 8-stud version, and then they also have the previously they already launched the 4-stud version, so you can see the difference. So the new one is 600 pieces, the old one is 400 pieces. So you can still buy both of them. So BlueBrixx has already said in the past that their intention is that, let's say, all the top sellers in the 6-stud lineup are going to be released as well in 8 starts. So for all of you, those of you who you want to move into 8 starts in your train system, because it's much more, I mean, it's not really minifigure scale, but it's close to it, much closer at least than the smaller ones. Here you go, you can definitely do this. And by the way, BlueBrixx is also selling tracks, including corners that are much more realistic, and also, let's say, don't make your 8-star trains look crazy if you go through a regular, like Lego, for instance, based track. Anyhow, let's move on. We have again availability of an old set. We are talking about the 102626. This thing has not been available since I'm doing this thing here, so that's, I think, worth mentioning. Cool truck. You have actually 3 trucks in there, right? Because 2 of them are on the lorry. 856 pieces, and BlueBrixx is asking for $33. That's 3.8 cents a piece. I can't say if there is a price raise. Like I said, 102 means this is a set from 2019. BlueBrixx has been very careful with raising any prices in recent months compared to some of their competitors, of course, including Lego and also Cobi. I mean, Cobi sets are not what they used to be from a price perspective, but BlueBrixx has been a lot more subtle with price raises. So I'm not sure, because I don't have the original price when it released back in the day, because back then I didn't even know that a brand called BlueBrixx exists. Anyhow, let's move on. A couple of announcements. From their military army lineup, BlueBrixx is also announcing 3 new sets. Actually, if you look at the numbers, this should be a 2022 set, because we are already in 106. So I guess these are some sets that have been in planning for quite a while. So let's get started. First of all, the 105708, 1244 pieces for a Leopard 2A4 main battle tank. So 2A4, I think that's something that the German army is not using anymore. It's actually, if you look at it, for those of you who are not so deep in the history of the Leopard, this is actually, so with the A5 version, the A5 was basically the biggest upgrade that they did. I think nowadays the army is at A7, I think, which is, however, almost identical to the A6. But the A5 was the biggest upgrade. Also, if you look at it from the outside, because they also upgraded the armament. So in fact, if you look at the turret, it looks very different, a lot more actually like the Leopard 1 even. So if you look at the modern Leopard that the German army is using, especially the turret looks entirely different. So I think that makes the A4 interesting from an historical perspective. At this point in time, it's just an announcement. Keep also in mind, this is scale 1/30, so it does not really fit into any of the Cobi lineups, which is a bit of a bummer, I must say. I would have preferred if BlueBrixx would have sticked with a Cobi here a little bit, because Cobi is kind of the market leader in this for this kind of vehicles, and of course it would be nice if you could combine them, right? Anyhow, here you go, Leopard 2A4. And then you have a main battle tank, the Leclerc, that is basically the Leopard 2 counterpart of the French forces. The 105729 we're talking about, the 1239 pieces. And again, we do not have a price yet, because BlueBrixx will give out prices only when they actually make the sets available. The Leclerc is interesting because, to my knowledge, I may be wrong here, this is the first time that BlueBrixx actually is doing a non-German military vehicle in this lineup. So that's interesting, but I may be wrong here. I mean, I don't have the entire lineup in my head, but if I recall correctly, this was always like German armed forces in the past. But anyhow, now here you go. I think Cobi has also never done a Leclerc, so this could be your chance if you are into French army vehicles. Anyhow, let's move on to another German system, the Scorpion mine throwing system, the 105739. Again, same scale, they are all 1/30. I should actually update this in ZDB. I think all the BlueBrixx army lineup sets are 1/30. This one here has 826 pieces. The Scorpion, of course, is interesting because this is actually an American basis. I think it was acquired by Germany in the early 80s, and then they just basically the mine throwing system is what they added, what the German military industrial complex added to the set, to the tank or to the vehicle. Like I said, this was brought into the German army in the early 80s and was went out of service, I think 2011, the last ones. All right, that was that. With that, we are moving on to Cobi. Speaking of scale, we have now finally the Cobi locomotive, German Deutsche Reichsbahn Baureihe 52, Baureihe Class 52, I guess you can translate it. It's a steam locomotive, so we have now availability of the 6280. That is the executive edition. Cobi will make 2 regular editions, if you will, which is interesting. I think we haven't had that before. The 6281, which is going to be in gray. I'm not 1% sure yet if this is more like a light gray or more like a dark gray. But in a nutshell, that's kind of the painting scheme that these locomotives had during the war, because actually this thing is also called in German the Kriegslokomotive, which basically means like the war locomotive, not because it's made for war, but it was made during the, I mean, I'm wrong here. I mean, what I'm trying to say is this is not to go to war. It was made for the war, because what German, the Third Reich was looking for was a locomotive that was very easy to build. So it is derived from the Class 50 locomotive, but it has had, instead of 5,000 pieces, it had 5,000 instead of 6,000 pieces. And it was also, they also used less material. And basically it was like a throwaway locomotive, by means that they said, okay, this thing has to, work during the war, and after the war we are going to build something different. So it had like a potential lifespan of 5 to 10 years. However, actually some of these did run for almost 50 years in Europe, and in fact these Class 52 is so well known because they made almost 7,000 of these during the war, which is crazy. There was a time in 1943 when they made 50 during just one day. So this was because the standardization allowed that all the locomotive manufacturing plants throughout Germany could basically work together and build this thing together, because they also had very high, it's next to simplification, they had also very high standardization, which was unheard of for the time. So as a result, they had a lot of these during the war, and even after the war. I think in Poland you had more than 1,000 of these. In Germany was still 2,500, and other European countries used them as well. So it was built for the war, but at the end of the day, it was also, and this is like the good thing, it was also the workhorse that helped rebuilding Europe after the war. Anyhow, obviously this thing is interesting for Cobi to get started in the new train lane lineup, because it was the war locomotive, if you will. It's both interesting for train enthusiasts, but of course also, let's say, Cobi's regular community of folks, working on models and dioramas around the war. So I guess that's why they chose 52. Actually, they made 4 sets, like I said, 3 of these, and then there's one without the coal transport. I actually don't know what the English name for this thing is, for this part of the locomotive. Anyhow, basically you can get just the locomotive itself. That is the 4th set, which is also going to be an executive edition. And again, the 2-in-1 function of the executive edition, by means you can either make the German Class 52 or the TY2, I think it was called, in Poland. This is the alternative, which means basically you have 2 minifigures and a couple of different prints. And of course, below the tracks are these gray plates, and also the sign here down below. If you look at the picture, I think this is also exclusive to the executive edition. Overall, I would say this is one of those Cobi executive editions that are almost identical to the regular set. Anyhow, long story short, we had availabilities of this bad boy over here in Europe, but as you can see here with the gray buttons, already sold out. Basically, it sold out after 2 days. I do hope that this thing will come back into store. Even if it's sold out already, I want to talk about it. I have already built it, and on my German YouTube channel, I also did a review. It's an amazing set. However, keep in mind, it's not motorized and cannot be motorized. I guess you could make quite some adaptation and basically rebuild it in the lower part. So I guess it is possible, but it's not going to be easy. Keep in mind, this thing has 2,623 pieces. So that's like a Cobi battleship. That's like Yamato. And it's scale 1/35, which again is the main scale for Cobi's minifigure scale. So this is maybe the first locomotive in BlueBrixx that is truly minifigure scale, which is cool, I think. But again, keep in mind, not motorized. and it's huge. It's enormous. There's a lot of pieces in there. Anyhow, let's move on to Cobi's 3049. That is, and I have to pronounce this in German, Sonderkraftfahrzeug 251 in version D, which is basically one of the, I guess, most well-known German half-tracks during the war. I think they made more than 15,000 of these. And this is, again, the set here, the 3049, is the regular version. That is, however, branded by Cobi as Company of Heroes 3. So that's one of the, what was it again? It's like the African battle group or something, right? So they have regular Wehrmacht in Company of Heroes 3 on the Axis side, and then they have this desert faction, which basically is a combination of German Wehrmacht, under Rommel, I guess, and Italian forces. Anyhow, coming back to the set, this thing has 463 pieces, and its costs here in Europe around between 37 and 42 bucks. I do not have international availability. As always, this takes quite a while for Cobi. They also made a second version, which is not Company of Heroes 3. That's actually the so-called Stummel version, which has a gun included, and it has 485 pieces and is over here in Europe, again, in the same price range. So it has, I think, a few more pieces, which is great. It has the additional gun, but costs the same, I guess. That's maybe the Company of Heroes edition. And then we have the Marder 3 Sonderkraftfahrzeug 139. So that's like that's a tank destroyer. I think they made two different versions. There was one version with the Soviet cannon, actually, and then there was the version, which I guess is this one, with the PAK 40. So that's a 7.5 centimeter anti-PAK Panzerabwehrkanone, basically means anti-tank gun mounted to it. This thing here has 420 pieces. No one minifigure, as always in Cobi style, no stickers, etc., just prints, and it's again in Europe between 42 and 36 bucks. And then we have a U-boat. Actually, here they made two versions, limited edition and the regular edition. So that's a Type 7C. This one here is named by Cobi as Used 96. Overall, German Navy had, I think, during the war, almost 570 of these. They are kind of the backbone of the German submarine fleet. This is a 1x144 set. The 4847 limited edition is 4845, which includes the captain of the ship. Actually, U-69 is the U-boat, because that's the very famous one from Lothar Günther Buchheim's best-selling novel Das Boot, and of course, which has also been the foundation of the Oscar-nominated film adaptation from the early 80s. So that's actually this submarine. I guess it's the most well-known of Type 7C U-boats, at least over here in Germany, due to the book and the movie. Anyhow, with that, we're moving on to number 5742 by Cobi, a 1x32 airplane fighter jet, actually, or fighter plane. PZL P11C. So PZL, that's a Polish manufacturer, and actually when it was introduced in the early 30s of the last century, it was considered a very modern, good fighter jet. However, it was already a bit outdated because, and which sounds crazy, right? Because Messerschmitt 109 was introduced just a few years later, but it was already considered a much more modern design and actually completely outgunned the PZL P11. So the Polish Air Force lost a lot of them when Nazi Germany marched into Poland in 1939. My apologies. And as a result, most of them were lost. Some of them actually were, I think, extracted or fled into Romania and became part of the Royal Romanian Air Force. Anyhow, this set is going to cost you right now over here in Europe 28 bucks. However, we do not have also a very broad availability. Only very few shops have all of these sets right now in stock, but I do assume all of them will get much more broader. On the Cobi Locomotive Executive Edition, I'm not sure. That shocked me a bit. That got sold out so quickly, but let's hope that it's getting back into stock. So let's move on to a new brand that I've not covered before. I mean, it's not new, but I haven't covered it before, and that is Kalos. That is actually a brand where we also have now in Europe availability. I haven't seen these with any of my Chinese retail partners, but I guess we will see them more and more as well. I can't say anything on the brick quality. I don't even know what kind of bricks are in there, but nevertheless, we have now availability over here in Europe of 5 of these bad boys. So let's get started with the Cafe, the 61005. It has 1,338 pieces and is sold over here in Europe for $70. That's 5.2 cents a piece. I think it's an interesting design. It seems to be like 16 studs wide, which is, I personally believe, a great format. It is on regular plates, not on base plates. And I'm a big fan. I've said this so many times before. I love these smaller buildings. I think they give to your city so much more variety. And also, if you're not a big city builder and don't have, I don't know, an entire basement for your brick city or your Lego city, if you will, I think this is great for folks who would just have a couple of shelves, want to build a small diorama, I don't know, something like 20 centimeters depth and maybe 60, 70, 80 centimeters width, something like that, right? Then I think you're here good to go with these kind of buildings. My personal favorites are still Access and box designs that have were made into sets by Kada. And I think these here should fit quite well. It's highly detailed. I mean, they used 1,300 pieces. All the floors are tiled. You have very detailed furniture. I mean, it's a great design, and I really love them over here. All right, let's move on to the 61004. So this has 1,392 pieces. It's called the Bookstore, $70, 5 cents a piece. Similar concept, fits very well. I mean, this like I said, I mean, if you look at this picture here, actually I have only listings for 3 of those, but you can see here pictures down below on the right if you're watching this on YouTube. There's also a red one where I do not have a listing yet, but the other 3. And you can see that, you know, they fit very well together. And the idea is, again, the same. I mean, if you look at the building techniques, it's almost like, I don't know, Lego from the like 90s, 80s, 90s, right? It's like in the old days. But it is much more modern, right? It's similar to the castle from BlueBrixx. I mean, immediately if you look at it and you look at this simple design, especially from the outside, you think, okay, this is like old school. But of course, I mean, if you really look at old sets, they are different, especially a lot smaller, right? I mean, in the 80s, there was no set by Lego with more than 1,000 pieces, right? So here you go, highly detailed building. It looks amazing. Like I said, there are actually 2 more on this picture down below where I do not have a listing yet, because then we have 3 other ones, 61003. So this is called the Modern House with a pent root. I'm not sure that was actually translated by BlueBrixx, I think, by the shop. I'm not sure if this is correct. Do we have a name here? No. Classic Apartment is actually called here. So I don't know. BlueBrixx made it weird. Okay, I will fix this. So it's a Classic Apartment, 61003. From Kalos blocks. And yeah, I think, again, it's a very modern design. It's like a regular home, right? This is something somebody could build nowadays. It's entirely modular. It has a slightly different format, as you can see, but it looks very beautiful as well. However, my personal favorite is the Modern Bungalow, 61002, 1,174 pieces, $55. Actually, it's called by Kalos Blocks the Stylish Apartment, which makes more sense. So again, I will fix this. I used the wrong names here. Anyhow, again, very detailed, very modular. I'm not 100% sure what exactly. I mean, if you look at this here, it looks like it's open on the back, right? And you can't really tell from these pictures, but it looks a bit like this, like it's open in the back, so it's easy also for kids to play around with, and you can remove the roof in addition. And then you have a very open diorama almost, which I think is a great concept. Plus, the building itself looks beautiful. I'm a really big fan. Let's move on to, and now let's directly go to the correct name again, Modern Apartment. Okay, that's a bit weird. They have both the same name. So maybe let's go what BlueBrixx called it, the Modern Two-Story House. By the way, I'm using these names given to the sets by BlueBrixx because they are the only retail partner I have that currently has this one in stock. Anyhow, it has 1,095 pieces, and BlueBrixx is asking for $50, 4.5 cents a piece. And again, a very modern house, very modular, and also quite detailed. It is, of course, like the other two, it's a different kind of almost like Bauhaus kind of design, right? With very, let's say, simplistic forms. Interesting here, if you look at this one and the first floor, how did they do the walls? This is interesting. This looks like there are a couple of pieces in there that we don't know from the Lego world. So I'm really curious and seeing more about these, because if you look from the outside, you could say, okay, this is the backside of masonry bricks. But if you look at the wall seems to be made out of 3 layers and like tiled plates or something. But how can you do this? I think you can't with regular bricks. So I'm really looking forward seeing this one. Really interested how this thing is actually made. Anyhow, that was that. With that, we're moving on to Lego. Here we have a couple of new announcements. One is, I haven't talked about, is a 4+ set, so usually I don't cover these that much, but this one has 3 interesting minifigures. It's the Tenno Jedi Temple 75358 by Lego. It has 124 pieces, and Lego is asking for $40. I mean, that's crazy, of course, but I mean, 4+ sets are always a bit crazy, but nevertheless, asking for $40 is a bit ridiculous. But it has, of course, a couple of cool minifigures in there. So we have like Master Yoda, did I say Jonah? Oh my god. Master Yoda and Liz Soleil and Kai Brightstar. And what is also interesting, we have clear lightsabers. We haven't seen these from Lego for quite a while. And actually, if you look, I think this is a regular photograph, as far as I can tell. And this one here is for sure as well. So, I mean, of course, we have to look at the actual set. But I do believe Lego is back to clear lightsabers. Not sure why. I mean, there was a lot of pushback when they moved into more like unclear ones. Personally, I always preferred that because technically that's how lightsabers look, right? They are not, the lightsaber doesn't look like glass, but I think a lot of folks in the community hated them. So that is interesting that they moved back to these. But yeah, here you go. I guess the community... or at least, yeah, the community pushback might be the reason. Long story short, I think it's really overpriced. Sorry to say that. This one is crazy. That's for me, I don't know, $20. I would still say, okay, it's a Lego set, so you have to pay a premium. But 40? That's ridiculous. For a couple of panels and 3 minifigures. Anyhow, let's move on to the current gift with purchase. I think at least over here in Europe we have this one. I hope in other regions as well. It's the second version of the Houses of the World. It's at least over here, I think in Central Europe, the Lego stores have them since April 1st until April 9th or so, together with a couple of Easter gift with purchases. Anyhow, we're talking about the 4590, 270 pieces. And of course, it belongs to the 40583, which was the first Houses of the World. Actually, I preferred the first one. This one here is quite simple, plus a bunch of stickers that it actually, I think, is going to need. Otherwise, it will look very boring. Also, these brick modifieds here on the right that you can see them from the outside. So in general, I preferred the first one. But here you go, your second gift with purchase. And then let's move on to a couple of sad... No, that's actually is good news. The Land Rover Classic Defender 90, the 10317, is available for in the online store since April 1st. In retail since April 4th, basically means since today. It is $240 US and it has 2,336 pieces. I assume no stickers, no prints. Let's see. I'm pretty sure this will change for sure. This thing has. a couple of stickers as far as I can tell. It's actually on its way over here on my desk, so I want to build this one. Really looking forward to it. Never built the Technic Defender that Lego did a couple of years back, but here we go. Looking forward to this one. Now let's come to the sad news, because the 3 Indiana Jones sets are already sold out. Nevertheless, I want to briefly mention that as planned, they got available April 1st. Actually, availability over here in Europe is a bit better. However, I think many of these sets also went into retail over here, but I think at least in North America, I'm actually always using the numbers from the US Lego store. All 3 of them are not available. Anyhow, in theory, the entire Lego Indiana Jones series became available. Personally, I think my favorite is going to be this one, Escape from the Lost Tomb, my apologies, 77013, because I love the minifigure lineup. I mean, the minifigure is the mummy. I'm sorry, the mummy is amazing. The Technic function in it, the play function is very cool. Actually, I want to build, however, the big one. Want to make a video on it, and usually you have to go with large sets. However, there's already good coverage from Lego recognized fan media outlets, so Solid Brick Studios already had this one on his table in Racing Brick as well. 77015, the large one, 1545 pieces, again in the US at least, sold out. But in Europe, it looks a bit more bright. The same is true, I think, for the Up House. The 43217, 598 pieces, and like I said, sold out at least in the US. Actually, this one is broadly in retail over here in Europe. I mean, as always, the situation in North America and Europe is very different when it comes to Lego, because I think in North America, Lego is much more tied to the chest, so to say, with their sets. A lot of them are more exclusive. In general, over here in Europe, you have much more retail representation, and also as a result of that, a lot more discount on the original Lego list price. Anyhow, with that, we are moving on to a couple of sets that are available. I think even this one here that is actually exclusive to Lego, the 76251 Star-Lord's helmet. Personally, I must say I like some of the helmets. I just built recently Leia's a new helm, but this one here, I don't know. I mean, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and Star-Lord is interesting. Never really liked his mask, but this one looks a bit creepy, if you ask me. Anyhow, for all of you who are big fans of Star-Lord, here you go. You can buy this set now at Lego for $80, 13.3 cents a piece. And then you have the new Guardians ship. As I said before, I really like the set. Love the minifigure lineup. Love the shape. The color is horrible, of course. I mean, this one in dark bluish gray would look amazing. Like I think I said already in the past, it reminds me of a very beloved design from EVE Online, actually, from a frigate that I really loved over there. Anyhow, it's a 76255. It has 1,108 pieces, and you can buy it at Lego in US for $100. For instance, here in Europe, we already have this thing in retail, and as you already can see, it's a lot cheaper. That's the big difference when stuff comes broadly into retail. Anyhow, let's move on to my personal favorite of the new Marvel Guardians lineup, and that is the Headquarters 76253, because it's just $10, I think. Yeah, it's $10. Over here in Europe, you can already buy it for around $7, and you have 2 amazing minifigures in there. I mean, Star-Lord again, I think that is Star-Lord, right? Again, I've never seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy, just saw the 2 movies, but anyhow, great minifigure, printed hips, printed legs. I mean, printed hips, not even Stormtroopers have printed hips, right? Marvel was always behind when it came to prints on the minifigures, and now they are ahead, actually. So let's cross fingers that Star Wars is getting better as well. Anyhow, the Groot minifigure, I think, is the highlight for many, and this in just such a cheap set. I mean, ignore the bricks. The 2 minifigures are, are carrying the set, if you will. And then let's move on to Baby Rocket Ship, 76254. I really like the design. Color is kind of special, but I like it as well. I think that's a good one. 330 pieces, and Lego is asking for $35, and you have a cool minifigure in there, right? So I don't know. Yeah, Rocket, to have Rocket in here and also Baby Rocket is pretty pretty cool. All right, let's move on. I'm a bit blind here because for whatever reason my browser is doing this a bit weird. But anyhow, let's move to the Disney Celebration Train 43212. It has only 200 pieces, but it has actually, I don't have this right now. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minifigures. Disney, great lineup, right? You have them all in here. Like you have Minnie and Mickey and Tinkerbell, Peter Pan, Woody and Moana. Moana, actually, I don't know. I'm not sure from which Disney movie this is, but yeah, my apologies. It's one of the Disney 100 years of Disney celebration sets by Lego. And if you look at the price, of course, you have to take into account the minifigures, which I think are great. Also high quality minifigures, lots of prints, dual mold legs. So there's a lot in this set actually. So with that, we are moving on from Lego to Pantasy. And here, my apologies, I think I should have reported on these a bit before. I think they went already live a couple of weeks ago or became available. But yeah, I was just a bit late to the party. I kind of missed them. My apologies. Actually, we have a couple of these on. I have a couple of these on their way to me because we want to cover them on the German version of the website. Actually, so we'll publish a couple of reviews, and I may also drop in a bit more information over here. But anyhow. Let's take a look at them. They are now available. So this is the Little Prince. So obviously the very famous child kids book, Le Petit Prince, which I've pronounced entirely wrong. I'm absolutely sure. French book, French children novel. I don't know. And they have made already one of these, and now they extended the lineup with 3 additional sets of this kind, like where you have the Little Prince with 1 minifigure and basically representing an important scene from the book. So let's get started. The 86305, as always with Pantasy, because they don't publish any piece counts. I'm not aware what they are. Actually, the one here in the middle, the dark one on the golden stand, that is the original set that they already released a couple of months back. And then now we have the 3 additional ones. From a size perspective, they're more or less all the same. So it's like 10 by 11 centimeters and then slightly below 19 centimeters in height. So we have here time travel now. This is the first one, the 86305. All 3 of them cost $31 directly at Pantasy at their store. And as always, there's also a discount code that you can find down below in the video description, or if you go on the Set2B page, you will see this as well. And then we have the 86304. That's the journey with the beautiful tree in the center. And then we have 86. No, I missed one. This one. 86303, which is on the planet, and that one is of course interesting because the minifigure of Pantasy here is entirely in trans. So it's trans green, trans clear, trans yellow, I guess. So all the pieces are available in trans, which is amazing. I'm not sure if we ever had this before. I mean, Lego has done trans minifigures. I remember, for instance, in the not very beloved video lineup, there was like a trans blue beer or something like that, but all in all it's quite rare. So that's cool that Pantasy is doing this, independent of what you think of these minifigures from non-Lego brands. Anyhow, let's move on. Then there's also Mahjong, and I'm pretty sure I've entirely pronounced this wrong. The 18005. Again, this is not a new set. I just haven't covered it before, so I just wanted to complete the picture. Again, we don't have a piece count. But if you're interested in this kind of game, and let me just do this because my monitor wants to shut down to save energy. That's interesting. Anyhow, so if you're a fan of this game, you have this in a very tiny set, actually. I don't think that this thing will have much more than 500 pieces. Because if you look at it, this is like 4, 6, 10, it's 12 studs. By, I don't know, 12 by 8 or something like that, or 12 by 10 stats. So it's really, really small. But as always with Pantasy, very high quality, only prints in here. You have all the metallic golden pieces. So it looks quite nice, but I guess you need to be a fan of this of this game to invest in the set. So that was sets of the week. With that, we are moving on to mocks of the week. Like I said, we are skipping ideas today because we're already almost 40 minutes in. Oh my god. And I have a lot of very cool mocks that I digged up this week. Let's talk about the Western Saloon by Lego Bricking. Quite an interesting set. I think it's really beautiful, especially if you look at this from the perspective that I've currently opened. Like if you look at the interior, it's very detailed. It has, I mean, of course, you need the minifigures, but I think it's very charming, very lovingly. The only thing that I don't really like is these outer walls. You can see it from this perspective. I mean, it's just reddish brown masses of bricks. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the color reddish brown, and especially in these enormous amounts, it's not that nice. However, you could use the mock as a starting point and maybe come up also with building techniques in the back that are a bit more like the ones in the front. So use brick modifieds, and then, you know, use all these 2/3 slopes to get a bit more interesting design. Because if you look at it at the front with the porch and everything, with the stairs, and it looks really cool. For me, that is how a Western set, if Lego would make a Western set today, this is what I would wish for, because it looks so cool. Lego Bricking, 2,324 pieces for his or her Western Saloon, 15 bucks, euros actually, seems to be a European designer. And then with that, we're moving on to Gretje. I do hope that I pronounce this correctly. The Forest Cabin, 2,128 pieces, 5 bucks. This is actually an alternate build of the Lego Ideas Treehouse, the 21318. And Gretje, of course, that designer is very famous for his designs by means of alternate builds, especially of the Ideas Treehouse. I think he has listed them here, I think, down below. So I think he is now at like 6 or 7 alternate builds. I mean, this is one of the things that I love about the Rebreakable community, because, I mean, you could buy one Lego set if it's like a modular building, especially one of the larger ones, or the Lego Ideas Treehouse. You could build, like, you could spend a lot of time building and refreshing your sets and everything with all these funny dioramas. Of course, the idea here is that you use the Forest Cabin together with the A-frame house, which I think, yeah, they do fit quite well together. Obviously, his tree designs are very different from the Lego designs, much more. There's a lot more wood to these trees, let's put it that way, than the very small ones from Lego, but I think they do very well together. Great design, really like this one. With that, we're moving on to a Technic set, again, a 1x8 scale. I think I talked about in the past about the Kada hypercar. I mean, Kada has published a couple of these Technic 1x8 sets. I mean, of course, Lego has the Daytona, but of course, you know, coming by these very large 4,000 pieces plus Technic sets, I mean, they are not easy to make, and as a result, not many manufacturers are making them. Lego, you know, is doing just 1 or 2 a year, or maybe 2 or 3, and then of course you have Kada. But if you are willing to invest into all the pieces, and you will need a lot of these, I think this mock is for you. It's the Pagani Huayra. I have no idea. My apologies. BC by Astyanax, 25 bucks, 4,706 pieces for this 1x8 scale supercar. And I think it's a beautiful design. It has a ton of Technic function. I think it is a design that is based on a design by Lanco. Actually, it was published first in a BlueBrixx threads, then rebuilt by Astyanax. And actually then they decided, okay, let's put a manual on Rebreakable. So 25 bucks, I think is more than okay for a Technic giant like this one. With that, we are moving on to actually, I think, my highlight, and I'm not even a soccer or football. By the way, it's football. A soccer or football fan. The New England Football Stadium by 603 Bricks. It has 8,368 pieces and is asking for 40 bucks. I mean, that's a bit on the higher side for a Rebreakable manual. However, I mean, it's 8,300 pieces, and I guess if you buy all of them, then the 40 bucks for the manuals won't make a difference. But anyhow, This is really cool. It goes a bit more outside. I mean, it's much larger than the football stadiums that Lego has done in the past. And it also uses a slightly different scale. And the idea is, of course, to show everything, right? Everything around the stadium as well, or at least a little bit, which I really like. The only thing I'm not so sure if I like about this design, of course, is the base, the foundation, because this is like an enormous lake of light bluish gray in snot. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very hard to carry this thing around. I mean, I have built a couple of sets with this kind of technique, but what usually folks do is they put an additional layer below this one and stabilize everything with Technic. Because this one here, I mean, you don't want to carry it around. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if this thing, how well it's going to work if you build this in real life. These look all like rendered pictures, because I think it's going to be tough to carry this thing. But I think it's going to look beautiful if you're into that kind of thing. With that, we are moving on to blast furnace. So if you want to have something like heavy industrial complex in your city, you have even the trains and everything for it, then I think the blast furnace by Yimari Lego. Something like that. 2,902 parts, 15 bucks. And like I said, if you're into heavy industry, which I think is a very rare sight in BlueBrixx, right? A lot of folks build maybe something like a harbor, a couple of passenger trains, something like that. But heavy industry is something, because it has not covered very well also by Lego in the past. That is something that you don't see that much. So if you're into that, I think here you go. This could be a really nice addition to your city. And with that, we are moving on to another diorama, and this time it's in the area of Lord of the Rings, Hobbit versus Nazgul by BrickPiso 89, 432 pieces only. I can't believe it. Looks like a lot more. $5. Really, I mean, I've talked about this before. I'm a big fan of these dioramas by Lego, the 3 dioramas that Lego did last year. And of course, there's a million MOCs out there nowadays picking up this style, and I think it fits very, very well. I mean, this obviously is a famous scene from the first movie. I mean, I think it also existed a little bit like this in the books. I can't precisely recall, but actually, I think it was a scene. In general, I was not always happy how Peter Jackson represented the Nazgul, but I think I like this scene, because before that, it was a very lighthearted, funny scene, right? When the 4 were running away from Farmer Maggot, I think he was called. That was like a fun, lighthearted scene, and then the Nazgul came, and everything got kind of dirty, and that you had the first time you had the feeling, okay, this ring is not good, and that is, I think, what I really liked about the scene. The contrast compared to the 5 minutes before in the movie was very well done by the team back in the day. Anyhow, now you have this amazing scene. It's also very nicely built in bricks and has only 432 pieces. I could really get into it. I mean, let's all cross fingers that after Rivendell and the 3 brickheads, Lego will continue to move back into Lord of the Rings or the Hobbits or whatever, and is making a couple of these. This is the kind of set I would really like to have from Lego as well, but until then, you can just build it yourself. Anyhow, let's move on to Dopey1479. Seeing a design I never covered here, 1,491 pieces for the temple building of Coruscant. So this is like architecture. As you know, I'm a big fan of that, and this thing looks really amazing. It's a bit deep from my taste, so I personally don't have the space. Otherwise, I think I would have built it because it looks really cool. It has a great scale. This is exactly the kind of stuff that I would like to see a lot more from Lego. Anyhow, £15, so I guess the designer is from the UK. What is interesting, no, I don't want to click on the parts, is actually Dopey1479 has a lot of cool MOCs out there in this scale. From Harry Potter, from Lord of the Rings. There's Gondor, of course. I mean, everybody's doing Gondor nowadays. The Ortonac Tower, but also a bit more Star Wars. I mean, I really like this crate MOC. I've never been, and my apologies, but I've never been a fan of the sequels. I love the prequels. I'm a big fan of Clone Wars, even the original movies. I mean, I like most of it, but the secrets I have, I was thinking all the time, Disney, what are you doing? But anyhow, this was a cool scene for sure, and it's a cool mark. A Battle for Crate, created by Dope. Really love, by the way, the series from BlueBrixx Studios on Crate, but of course this thing here is a lot smaller, but it's not that small, 4,400 pieces. So definitely a designer on Rebrickable, an account that I would check out. And then with that, we're moving on to the Agonas, the Pillars of the Kings custom mock by Velocity Sniper, I think, 1,553 pieces, $8. I've always been a huge fan of Peter Jackson's interpretation of the Agonas. For me, the scale, and I think what they also brought across very well in the movie was this whole notion that I think comes, for me at least, always part of Tolkien. It's like, the good old days, when elven and humans were still great and everything was good before all the evil started. I mean, technically that's not entirely true. This was like, the Agonas are not from that age where everything was perfect, but at least, the film in this area brought across very well, like the good old days kind of vibe that I think Tolkien's story is famous for. Anyhow, I think, so that's always why I love seeing an Agonas representation in bricks, and I think this is a cool one. I mean, look, it has an entirely different scale that was, for instance, hinted at in the movies. These would be a lot smaller, because the idea here is, of course, that you put into these boats, you put minifigures. But nevertheless, nice mock. Like I said, slightly above 1,500 pieces. And with that, let me just check. We are moving on to a cool mark where I just can't believe that the designer Hubry managed to do this with only 660 pieces, because it looks so detailed. $5 for the Cyberpunk Seafood. I mean, it's only a small building, but it's very highly detailed. It just looks great. It looks charming, detailed. I mean, yes, you could say this is cyberpunk, but honestly, you can use this for like any scene. This could be even a beach bar. It looks just super cool. Big fan of this design. And then we have another one from Gabizon this is called the Modular Urban Food Area. Plus 3 stands and 1 cart. So I talked about this series before, actually, like... Shit, this was wrong. My apologies. This was a misclick. So they published a lot of these stands, hot dog stand, chocolate stands, basically to populate a market in your city, and you could even buy these stands. So again, I don't want to repeat all of it. I have covered it quite well in the past. And now you have, however, a slightly larger module that is entirely, could work on its own. And this is this food area, this urban food area. So you have these containers, and it's on a 32 by 32 base plate, which even has the Technic bricks included, so you could connect it to modular buildings. So this is like a smaller thing on its own. I mean, obviously there are 3 stands included, but you could, of course, combine it with all the other stands that have been published by Gabizon. And so there's a lot of variety in there. And I always like these kind of modules. You can put this in between your modular buildings and have a lot of fun there. So great addition to this concept by Gabizon. Anyhow, with that, I hope you liked the show. For those of you who watch this on YouTube, please leave a like or comment, or even better, subscribe to the channel. For you podcast listeners, please leave a review, comment, or like on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to the show. Thanks for listening. See you next week.